Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Diary of a Balkan Kid. Today we have another People's Entry with Alex Terranova, the Dream Mason himself. Alex, how's it going, man?
I'm good, man. The people's entry. That sounds awesome. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How's everything going?
Everything's good. It's sometimes I feel bad like in the world we live in right now saying like everything's good. And and I say that, I always repeat that because I think a lot of people that good things are happening for might feel that way also. And I
Yeah,
think it's important to remember that, hey, yeah, the world is in a challenging spot, and but that doesn't mean all of us have to be like bombarded by it 24/7. We can still be like living our lives, succeeding, thriving, killing it. That's our choice, right? Like
that's
that's the
it,
one
man.
power we have. And I so I'm doing great. I'm like I can't this unfortunately to say, like 2020 has probably been like the best year of my life. Which is
Well,
which
listen,
is
listen, man.
insane,
I'm
right?
I'm I'm glad to hear that. To be honest with you, listen, that's a great thing. I gotta tell you, I mean, up until last week, it's going very well for me also. And I gotta tell you, since last time we spoke, I believe it was like 10 days ago or something like that. You know when you're just in a turbulent time in your life, things are shaking around and you're just
Mhm.
waiting for it to stop. So last week one of my first cousins passed away in New York. He was
Really sorry.
actually gunned down. So going through that, then a few days after that, ended a relationship, 3 year long relationship with my girlfriend. So I think, these things come at a great time, and it's kind of amazing how, the world just brings you the right people at the right time. So I've been looking forward to this conversation, not only as a distraction, but also to take things away from you in order to keep moving forward, you know?
Yeah. Well, man, dude, I'm really sorry. I think one of the like bad stuff, I don't know a better word to use than bad,
Yeah.
like life keeps throwing it at us, right? It does. If it's not the family stuff, it's health or it's society. One of the things I think about when I say like 2020 is the best year, it doesn't mean that there isn't loss. It doesn't mean that my heart is broken for like America and for minorities and for anybody of color or identifies as a group, Native Americans or people that identify not as straight or male or female. And at the same time, I think like all these things can exist at the same time. You can be in love and have your heart broken. You
Yeah.
can be successful and have empathy and compassion and be trying to help people that aren't having the same as you. But thanks for sharing that, man. What's going on for you. I think it's important that people hear that a lot of times I think when you see people online, it's like they're always crushing it and they have no problems. And that's actually not true. We all have stuff. I mean, even though I say it's the best year, it's like I've probably cried more in 2020 than ever in my life because all the shit that's going on and feeling sometimes hopeless, like you can't have an impact or do anything.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I hear that 100%. But I understand that you have a poem prepared for me today. Not to take you off guard or throw you off your track, but I'm ready to hear it, man. Whenever you're ready to go, I mean, as long as it comes from the heart, whatever you're feeling in the moment, whatever you have ready for me, I'm ready.
So it's not a freestyle. I can't go, I'm not there yet, but I did write this for you. Only two other people have heard this, not like for you, but for you, your audience. You
Yeah,
shared with me when we connected that you really like to see this as a journal entry. And so I sat down and was like, man, if I was writing a journal entry about me and where I come from and who I am in the world and what I'm up to, let me see if I can write a poem from that. And I really like writing poetry. I feel like especially it's a way to tap into our emotional side. So I'll throw it out to you right here. I got to read it because I don't have it
listen,
memorized. But
no worries, man, no worries.
so it's called "You Think You're Alive." You think you're alive, but mostly only egos and drive. Your essence a myth, covered in fear's grip. Your habits are timed, behaviors fulfilled in predictable fashion, automatic survival the drill. You've pretended so long, the myth feels like truth, till you can't even see who you've become is miles from who you were born to be. So scrub off the rust, the perfection and control. The worry and anxiety must be taking a toll. It's time to be free, to escape from your head and fall into your heart. The world is yours when you remember being you is an art.
Wow. Wow. You must write. a little bit here and there. You must, because that was absolutely phenomenal, man. And thank you
Thank
so much for that. That was a great entry. I'm proud of that one for real. I
Thanks, man.
mean, let go of the
I'm sweating. I'm a
anxiety.
little nervous.
It's all good. It's all good. It's not easy, man. Like I said, it takes a lot of courage to come on here and do that. A lot of courage to open up. But I love the message of the entry, to let go of the anxiety, let go of everything in your head, and just follow your heart. Now,
Yeah.
from what I've read about you, and I gotta tell you, I've been doing some reading on you, man. I've been stalking you a little bit, and from what I've read about you, there was a moment in your life where you must have had this built up anxiety, and you made a change. Now, if you want to give some background on yourself, what you were doing before you made the change to what you're doing now. I'm sorry, I didn't give you a great intro,
No, you're all good.
but if you can go ahead and explain that moment when you let go of that anxiety and followed your heart, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, I think this for all of us, for me, it goes all the way back to childhood. I was actually doing an exercise earlier today where you had to close your eyes and remember a happy time from when you were a kid. Now, the person who led it was like, if you don't have any, because some of us unfortunately don't, or we can't
Yeah.
remember them because they're so far and few between, he's like, make one up. He's like, just invent one. But I could remember one, and I could like vividly see myself at my grandparents' house. You know, we were playing in the pool that my grandparents had. My grandparents were young and they're not alive anymore. My dad was taking a nap. My mom was reading a book, and I could see me as like probably, I don't know, 8-year-old, and
Yeah.
just like the life and the joy and the vibrance and the light and the competitiveness and the play, and just like I was so alive.
Yeah.
And in this exercise, it's kind of like see yourself then, because we're not like that anymore, right? We leave that like essence of who we are behind when I like to say like life slaps us around enough that we change, and we diminish that. We even talk about it. We're like, grow up, right? Leave that
Mhm.
shit behind. But that shit is who we actually are. And it's the beauty of who we are. That's why we love puppies and kids so much, because they remind us of who we really are inside. And we get like out of our hearts and into our head. So for me, it was really clear. I remember being a kid and somehow at some point started realizing the way you look really matters. Well, not to
Yeah.
say that it really does, but that's what the message I was receiving, right? How much you weigh, are you good looking, not good looking? I remember hearing messages like from just simple things like, oh, you gained weight, you lost weight, you look really handsome, like things like that, and started to think that's what was super important about who you were. And I remember then seeing media, and that's what media shows too, right? Like what did men, I'm 38 years old, and when I was in junior high, elementary school, it was like Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, all these dudes with muscles. The WWF back then was like, right, it was like the prime time of that, and
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan and all these things. And I remember it was like how strong you were, how muscly you were, how good looking could you get the girl, and then I got into like, let's say when you start, girls and boys start like kind of noticing each other. And I remember being like, oh, this is important. Like I got to figure out how to get them to like me. And all of a sudden it wasn't about getting them to like me. It was a trick. So I couldn't like me, right? If they didn't like me, I didn't like me. So,
Yeah.
and that started like a snowball where everything in my life was about success, money and like achievements. Uh, the girls that you were with or that you could get or that you could be hanging out with, the places that you've gone, the cars that you drive, all these things that are just like superficial on the outside. They're not bad, but I made them. They were my worth, right?
Yeah.
And I carried that from my teenage years all the way to almost 30, like I guess 32. And I didn't even realize I was living like a very smoke and mirrors life. Like I thought I was real because I was blunt and I was honest and I would say what I think, but it was all a mask, because it was all like life slapped me around to believe all these things about me that weren't really true. And at 32 years old, it was actually like right before my 32nd birthday. I was in Costa Rica with my family, and my girlfriend at the time not my girlfriend, sorry, my cousin, not at the time. My girlfriend was sitting next to me. My cousin asked everybody what they were grateful for. And it got around the table to me, and I had a good job. I was living in New York City. I had a really good job. I had a beautiful, talented, amazing girlfriend. I had money. I had a great car that I wasn't even using that was parked in LA. Excuse me. And I was healthy, and my family was around me and healthy and alive and abundant. And I couldn't answer the question. And
Wow.
like to this day, it was like God punched me right in the nose. Because, you get punched in the nose, what happens? Your eyes water, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I burst into tears, started bawling, everybody staring at me like slack jawed. Who is this guy? He doesn't cry. He's usually emotionless and like deflects anything of depth. And I couldn't do that in this moment. And I realized in that moment, I have what like 99% of the world wants.
Yep.
And I'm not grateful for any of it. So fuck me, and in that moment, I realized how unhappy I was, how it was just like, I was only as happy as I could drink myself or the girl I could get or the money I could make. And if I didn't have those things, then I was just like, got to get more. It's like filling up a cup that just has a hole in the bottom of it. And that's when things started to change. Right then, I like said to my girlfriend at the time, I got to change my life.
Yeah.
And that started a process. That was like six-ish years ago. That started a process of changing everything.
And I think, I mean, for you to come to that realization, it's amazing. It shows how brave you are. But then it also speaks to the fact how all these things that we are made to think that matter, the girl, the money, the cars, the lifestyle. I mean, you were opening up restaurants, you were doing all these things. Money was there. It just goes to show you that none of that stuff really matters. And I think it's amazing to see how when you were faced with that question, how that just set things off. Like you said, you were punched in the head. And for you to have everything that we're all striving for and to not be grateful for it, that just shows that there's something missing inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
There's something missing inside of you that you can't get from these material things, from this lifestyle. And I think it speaks to you, who you are as a person, to giving all that up and taking this next step.
I want to say it was easy in some regards for me, because I remember when my first coach that came along, like shortly after that, said to me, I basically had a coach, and I was going through a transformation leadership coach training program, and which was just, I want to say it was like steroids for personal development. Strongly recommend it to anyone. Go through courses, but really recommend a program called Accomplishment Coaching, which is a year-long, completely changed my life. And the coach I had at this time was, I was realizing that the restaurant business wasn't for me anymore. That was part of the facade, who I was, and nothing wrong with that business. It just, I had kind of grown out of it. And she said to me, well, what's stopping you from leaving, from becoming the writer that you want to be, from helping other people on this journey, from being, starting a podcast, speaking, all these things that I wanted to do. And I went, and I was like, I don't know. And she was like, well, what are you afraid of? Like, are you afraid you're not gonna be able to pay your bills or be homeless? And I was like, no. And she was like, why not? And I was like, well, I have a very supportive family. And that's where I say, like, that part of it wasn't as hard, right? A lot of people, they don't have that. If they fail, they're gonna be homeless. So I think we do have to take account for everybody's different, right? Everybody has different challenges. For me, all my demons have always been inside of me, those are the same kind of people I work with now, right? I'm not probably the best person to go work with people that don't have their basic needs met. I don't know that. I didn't have to work through those challenges. It's not to say that I can't help somebody like that. It's just not what I've overcome. I've been
Mhm.
fighting the battle of, I think about my soul sometimes as like, if my soul came here to learn a lesson, it was the lesson that you have all the gifts that other people want and you're still not happy.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's unique to me. There's 9 billion people on this planet. There's a lot of people, and we see it, right? Celebrities and musicians committing suicide. People in finance have all the money, all the women, all the properties, or all the men and all the properties, whatever they want, and they're still unhappy. And I think part of my journey was, it's like, you got it all. You got to like learn how to discover who you actually are inside, and then help other people with that journey. So the courage really became overcoming the like false identities and being willing to take off the masks, and even like write a poem, like the kind of thing, like write a poem and share it with you, to open my heart, to tell the world that I cry in 2020. Like that was not a thing that I would ever have done before, because to me that would have made me like look bad.
Made you soft, right? That's what we're all made
Yeah,
to believe. It makes you soft. You're not a real man.
yeah,
That's one of the points that I try to stress, is that your definition of a real man is so convoluted. I think it takes courage, and it shows a real man who is not afraid to express his emotions. And
absolutely. Well,
th-
I don't. Have you ever read anything by Brene Brown?
I have not.
So Brene Brown is the like the foremost expert on like vulnerability, and
Hmm.
she talks about vulnerability. And what I love is she uses this example, as she says, men and women, but we have this idea that vulnerability is weakness. I remember when I heard it the first time, I went, yeah, that's where you like invade the castle. You find the vulnerable spot, and that's where you go, right? If we're talking about like boxing or UFC or sports, it's like, ooh, who's their vulnerable player? What's the vulnerable part of their body? That's where you attack.
Yeah.
But that's not what vulnerability means in outside of that sense. In that sense, yes, that's what it means. But when it comes to us being human beings, we are vulnerable, and it's not a weakness. And the way she breaks it down is, if you look at the men or women that are the most brave in our world, we could say they're the Marines, the Navy SEALs, the military, the firemen that are going into blazes to rescue people, policemen at times. But all these people that are like civil servants in different ways, people like, we could even say people that go into war-torn countries to provide food and like help people, right? Doctors. All these people put something on the line. A fireman running into a burning building is vulnerable, right? His life is at stake. And if he has a family, or she has a family, their family is, a connection to their family is at stake. And what's more vulnerable than that? So vulnerability is actually about courage and bravery.
Hmm.
And if we want to talk about power and strength, well, that's courage and bravery. So to be vulnerable, you actually have to be courageous and strong.
Yeah. And when you were growing up, having these ideas in your head, I know there was a moment for me. I don't know exactly when it was, but it was sometime in late college, a
Mm-hmm.
couple years back, where I started to realize that I was behaving in certain ways and certain patterns and these things that just weren't healthy for me, because I had these ideas in my head of who I'm supposed to be, the idea of success. But it finally hit me at one point that, like, writing poetry is cool. It's cool to be a contradiction. It's cool to be into a bunch of different things, not just to be, I love football. I watch football, but I'm not just going to only watch football. Like, I'll listen to classical music, I'll read books, I'll do whatever it is. And I think it just makes you a more well-rounded person. So there's this idea that you can't contradict yourself. So like, why are you going to set this box up for yourself? It's like, okay, I can only operate within these boundaries, or else I will not be a real man. It's weird to me that, like, people don't. It's not weird, because I understand that everybody has their own, perspective, but it's like, I think it's very important for all of us to see that we're making imaginary boundaries, and we're not fulfilling ourselves in a way that we should be doing inside of these boundaries.
I think there's this fear a lot of times that we're afraid to be like hypocrites. And I'm using hypocrites just as it's a powerful word. Like, I'm using that word on purpose. Like, we're afraid to have these dichotomies, right, of life. But life is one giant dichotomy,
Hmm.
right? We all do things that we tell other people they shouldn't do. We all tell kids things to do things we do as adults. We get mad at our politicians for doing things that we say are immoral or lack integrity, and yet we do them. I often think, like, whenever I hear somebody getting upset with like other people breaking laws or doing things they shouldn't do, and then you notice all the times they speed or run through stop signs or manipulate laws to their advantages, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't say this as none of this is like a bad or good thing. I say it as in, we are like walking hypocrites and dichotomy, and it's just part of what life is. It is this ever flowing uh, thing, that
Yeah.
if we were more willing to embrace all of it, I love that you said like the whole human being, because that's how I see it. Like, I don't want to just be able to live one part of life. Life is too big, and it's too expansive to not be like, it's like going to a buffet and being so committed that fried chicken is the best food. You don't eat anything else because you're like, man, if somebody sees me eating shrimp or filet mignon or mac and cheese or some vegetables, they're going to be like, I thought you said fried chicken was the best food. And
Wow,
it,
that's
and it's like,
that's a great way to put it.
so you miss out on everything because you have a favorite or because you're afraid of what other people might say, instead of, yeah, fried chicken is my favorite food and I want to experience all these foods.
Yeah. What is what is the lifestyle of a life coach? Because I gotta ask you because w- I mean you know how to give advice to everybody else, so you have everything up here in your head. So now it comes down to discipline because you know everything. You know how to
I don't think this is
no, you don't know you don't of course you
yeah,
don't know
I'm not.
everything, but now it comes but you know how to guide somebody. You know what are the processes to live a good, happy, and fulfilled life and be successful. When you wake up in the morning, do you sometimes struggle with these thoughts, knowing that you know exactly what to do, and just does the discipline ever get to you?
Oh my god. Okay, first of all, we got to go back to like,
Okay.
um because you said what is it like? I can't speak for all coaches, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was trained in a very specific model that's called ontology, which is
Sure.
about like who you're being and how you show up. And the way I'll quickly explain that is, we think of ourselves as all the things we do, right? Oh, I got all this stuff I got to do today. But who are you being? We don't call ourselves human doings. Those would be robots. We're called human beings. How do you show up when you're doing things? And that's the way I like actually look at life. Is it's not about all the stuff I got to do. Who am I going to be about the things I got to do? So if you say to me, hey, Alex, we got to go fix a fence today. Well, do I begrudgingly fix a fence with you? Am I miserable about fixing a fence for you? Or am I like, this is fun. I'm going to learn some stuff. I'm going to help my buddy out. I'm going to learn some things. We're going to get a job done. That's the part I get to choose, right? I get to choose how I show up. And I think that's the game changer for all of life. Because it doesn't matter what you do. Are you aware of how you're showing up in the activity? So when you ask what's it like being a coach, I don't often think of myself as a life coach. I think of myself as a performance coach or a business coach. Um, but I do work with people on their lives as a whole, because
Yeah.
business and performance is part of your life. I I take this into account all the time. Like, who am I being? Like, how am I showing up? When I wake up in the morning, if I don't do something to kind of center myself, my default when I wake up, like that automatic brain pattern that happens, like your eyes open, the way I feel when I wake up is fuck. And do all this shit again. I gotta like run my business, work on like I just start all the things, right? That's where my
Yep.
brain
Yep.
automatically goes. So when I wake up, not I would say 5 days a week, because it's not every day, but I like let myself have weekends off often. But I get Monday through Friday, I wake up and the first thing I do after brushing my teeth is I go meditate for 10 to 20 minutes. Because I gotta get that thought, those feelings out of my space, because that's gonna kill my whole day. I mean,
Absolutely.
imagine if you were, LeBron James or Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, and right when you stepped onto the court, the first thing you thought about was all the shots you were going to miss, or you thought about how the other opponents were better than you. Game is done, ruined right there to start
Over.
the game. So that to me is like imperative. Is how are you going to launch your day? And for me, meditation has been really, because it also helps me train my brain that throughout the day, when the like negative chatter gets going or I get like lose focus, meditation teaches you you get to control your brain versus your brain controlling you.
And that's got to be so important and something that I want to start practicing too because I mean, I can tell you even just like today, I got the time zones mixed up. I had on my calendar 4 o'clock for us, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, it's like 4:05. I'm like, oh, okay, where's Alex? And then I realized that, your Pacific time. It slipped my mind. But in that time leading up to there, my mind was, I'm happy that this happened, to be honest with you, because
Yeah.
my mind was so jumbled up. I had other distractions coming through my phone. I was jumbled up. I was pacing around the room. And when it happened, I was like, okay, great. I got 3 hours now. I linked up with an old friend, played some basketball, just had some physical activity to not think about anything at all. And when I came back in here, I was prepared for you. I was excited to talk to you, you know?
Nice.
So if meditation can do that for me every morning, I got to try it out. And I've been hearing it too. So if you can kind of go into what is your meditation process like for the people listening and for me, just to have maybe a stepping stone to start.
So I like the first place I would go. My favorite meditation teacher is a guy named David G, and he spells his G is spelled J-I. He was a finance guy who, during 9/11, had this almost wake up experience where a homeless guy reached out from under a box and grabbed his pant leg and was like, "What are they going to remember you for?" I don't remember exactly what it was, but it like woke him up to be like, "Holy shit!" Like he was like only concerned about money and success, and it woke him up, and he went to India, and now he's an amazing meditation teacher. But so on his website, he offers like you can buy his meditations. He has CDs, books. You can download them on like Insight Timer and other places. Also, he has some on his website. I use a lot of his. I really like his meditations because he does this interesting thing that I haven't seen in a lot of places where he gives a talk about something. So I'll find a meditation on a subject that I think I need that day. So he'll talk about like love or focus or intention or gratitude or whatever, forgiveness, and then I'll find the one that I want through his like essentially catalog. And then he gives a talk where he kind of teaches you about that. He gives you like some philosophy about that idea. And then he'll give you like a mantra, and then he'll get quiet and ask you to kind of focus on your breath and repeat that mantra. So you're just saying like a mantra, he'll tell you what it means and whatnot. And then he brings you out at the end, and he kind of like brings you out and lets you go. But I like that there's a balance between somebody talking and I'm just breathing and following their voice. And then there's a time where it's quiet and I just have to be with myself. It's a nice balance. It's kind of like I feel like he sets me up. To go back to the basketball analogy, it's like the head coach gives you a really nice talk to get you out there, and then now you got to get in your head and get yourself ready. So I highly recommend David G. There's tons of apps, right, for meditation. I've used all sorts of them. I think the key with meditating is just practicing. People think that they're like, oh, I can't meditate. My thoughts don't stop. I keep thinking about stuff. Well, congratulations, you're normal. Your brain is designed to have thousands and thousands of thoughts all day long. Just because you say you want to sit down and meditate, your brain isn't going to turn off or even give a shit. Your brain is just going to keep doing what it's doing. So it's like your job when you meditate is just to keep coming back to whatever you're meditating on. So you're following your breath. It's going, oh, I'm thinking about shopping later. I'm thinking about that person I like. I'm thinking about all the concerns and worries I have, and to catch yourself and go, oh, I'm doing it. Let's come back to my breath or my mantra or whatever. Oh, I'm doing it again. Let's come back again. Come back again. And the more you do it, it becomes more infrequent, right? You start getting more aware and more present. And then it starts showing up in your regular life all day long, where something happens and you don't just go off. You actually go, oh, I see what's happening right there. I'm going to choose how I'm going to respond. So I want to go back for a second because you asked me what it's like a day in the life of a coach.
Yeah.
I think to me, there's a few things. One is coaches have got to take care of themselves. They got to set themselves up for success. So whether that be like, a yoga class in the morning, a fitness class, lifting weights, meditation, a run, I think any great coach must have their own coach. I have my own coach. I've had my own coach for 6 years. If somebody tells me they're a coach and they don't have a coach, I'm like, run the other way, get out of there, because nobody's checking their blind spots. And so I think doing the work, like I don't ask my clients to do anything that I either haven't done or I don't do myself. And the piece that I want to kind of bring back to is you said, you know all this stuff. I don't think that's what real coaching is about. I think, yes, I continue to learn and I keep reading books, but most of that I think is for me, and I can offer that insight to people. But I think your journey, your life is your path. If you do it the way I do it, then you're living my life, and that's not authentic for you. Your life, you have to find out how to live your life. So I really believe that my job, whether I'm working with somebody on their business or on their life or their relationship, is to it's almost like I want to spear them and then help pull that information out of them but get them to come up with it themselves. So it's like I get in there through connection, and then by pulling it out is like me asking questions that's having them think about things. Like, can I ask you a question about,
Yeah,
like,
please.
so like 4 o'clock in the afternoon when I didn't show up and you thought, you didn't realize the time situation, what thoughts were you thinking about yourself? Not about me, but what did you think about you?
So for me, I'll say this straight off the bat. My organization skills need to be higher. So when we spoke on the phone before, my initial thought was, dude, you got to get organized, because I've had this issue, and when we spoke on the phone, I put in Alex 4 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
No Eastern, because I just expect myself to remember things, but then
Sure.
a week goes by and you don't remember. And previously, when I was working for a corporation, I'm not on my own time. So if I'm not that organized, it's okay. I'm still getting paid for it. Nobody's really gonna be on my back. So now when it comes back, I'm on my own time now. Working for myself pretty much. It doesn't fly anymore. So it is something that I have to get in check, and I'm glad you asked that question.
So, and like you just explained it all to me, right? So one of the things that like I think that we do is, right, we explain things. It's like it's actually really in the moment of like, hey, Alex isn't here. That's actually all that went on. You're
Mm.
like going into in your head, right? You're going into
Yeah,
your stories about how you're not organized and all this stuff. And like, it's fine, right? I'm sure we can all improve on areas. And like, the only way we can improve is to reflect. But like, you're making up all this stuff and going on all these different directions where it could have been a text to me like, hey man, I thought we said 4, right? And I'd be like, oh, we said, maybe I messed up, who knows? But
yeah,
I think we do what you just showed is that's the way you do it when something doesn't go as planned, right? I do my own version of it. Bob and Sarah, whoever, do their own version of it. And so my job as a coach is like to pull these things out and get you aware of like, man, that's so silly. Why do I do that?
yeah,
And then when we can see ourselves from like a new angle or a new perspective, then we can go, man, that's not working for me. My organizational skills aren't working for me. The way I like the games I play with myself in my head aren't working for me. I need to create. So let me create some systems, some structures, some ways I want to practice being. When I talked about before, remembering what I was like as a little kid, I was like playful and fun and like messed around and made up stories and was creative. And, like I played games competitively, but I didn't care if I lost, right? I just wanted to have fun. And I think about even showing up here, I was like, right before this, I was on a call and I was like, man, I should like throw some stuff in my hair. I should like and I was like, no, I just like, this is how I am today. I don't
yeah,
have clients today. I was creative writing today. I was working on some other projects. This is how I'm working. Why can't I show up like this? This is actually what's real. If you walked into my office, this is what you would see. Now, if you were taking me to a business meeting, I'm going to take my hat off and like clean up a
yeah.
little bit. But I'm also not, I'm going to still be true to me, but like, this is who I am. And I think like embracing that, embracing more of that, who I really am versus all these like jumbled thoughts and ideas, like all that stuff it's just like sucks the life out of us. Like, how
Oh
did
yeah.
you feel when all that was happening?
When I
At
missed
four
the
o'clock,
call?
when you were having that whole game in your head?
Um, it wasn't the first time, so like these things happen to me quite often.
But you didn't feel good, I'm guessing. You're not like proud of yourself in that moment. You're not like feeling
No,
alive.
no, absolutely not. And I wasn't in the right state of mind beforehand either. But
Yeah.
to be honest with you, I'm really, I don't get too much in my head. So like when it happened, I was just like, oh, okay, either he's not showing up, we'll reschedule the call, or it's gonna be at 7 o'clock.
Mhm.
So I didn't get too deep into it, but yeah, it was. I would, yeah, it is. It was what it was.
Yeah.
Now, when you get your clients coming to you, one of the things that I understand about myself is that there are times in my life where I'm not ready for change, even if I know what's good for me. Do you find that most of the clients that come to you and seek your advice, are they ready for it?
I'm not even ready for it all the time. And I mean, with my
Yeah.
own coach, um, I mean, I don't think you could be meeting with me if you're not ready for it.
Okay.
Now, one of my favorite clients, And I say she's my favorite because she's not my favorite. She's one of my favorite clients. We've just worked together for a really long time. Like she almost feels like family. Like we've just been in a partnership for so long that I know her so well. She says working with me is like getting a hug and punched in the face at the same time. And I think sometimes, at least when you work with me, people, they know they want something to change. It doesn't mean anything's bad, but they know. The way I like to think about it is like, hey, they've climbed a mountain and they're at some peak, but they want to get to another peak, a new mountaintop. And whatever they've done to get them to that first mountaintop isn't getting them to that next one, right? So you run a 7-minute mile, whatever you did to get you to 7 ain't getting you to 5. You need new exercises, new routines, new dietary habits. And some people, we can't do that on our own. Most people, anybody great pretty much has a coach in some way, shape, or form. So sometimes what happens with people that come to me is they're like, oh, this is gonna feel good. It's gonna be like all lovey-dovey. He's just gonna like help me like love myself, and we're just gonna like accomplish goals, and it's gonna be great. And sometimes I'm smacking you in the face. Like I'm telling you shit that you just said to me that makes no sense, right? Like you're telling me you're committed to health, but then you tell me that you were out all weekend drinking and eating pizza, and I call you a liar. Like I'm not calling you a liar to be a jerk, but just to like have you feel like, hey, you're not being truthful, not to me, I don't care, but to yourself. And that's a silly example, right? But we all do stuff like that.
Yeah.
We say family is important to us, but we don't go visit them or call them. We say we're committed to making a difference for people, and really what we're doing is like playing around on Facebook and Instagram all day. And so I think sometimes what happens is people get smacked in the face with a perspective that doesn't feel so good, and they're like, ooh, I don't know if I want this. And that's where the magic happens, because most of us are taught to think that like life is supposed to be comfortable. If we can only have like a nice comfortable life, comfort is good. No, fuck that. Comfort's the enemy. Comfort has you stay stuck and still. You want to be comfortable, like sit on the couch with some ice cream watching Netflix. Be comfortable, but you won't achieve anything. One way you're going to achieve the things you want and live the life you want is to get out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely. And when you get out of that comfort zone, what I've seen, I mean, one of the great examples that I can point to is I was training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu
Nice.
about a year ago. And when I started, I'm claustrophobic. So, I mean, I don't know if you've trained before, but when you're under there and this guy's trying to choke you out and he's just mustering all the air out of you,
I can imagine.
my head is just, get out, get out, get out. Like, get the fuck out of there. Why are you doing this? Why are you here? And I'm having these thoughts when I'm training, the first 3 sessions. And then finally you start getting a little bit more comfortable and you get that endurance and you're feeling better in the pocket. And then after that, you gain this sort of confidence because you think back to, how you felt even last week. Then you gain this confidence and it shows you that, listen, just because things are uncomfortable, you hate them at the moment, doesn't mean that it's not good for you, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. And just starting to train like jujitsu and just seeing that and pointing to one example, it gave me so much confidence in my life to when things feel uncomfortable. Like doing this podcast is uncomfortable, man. Like I don't know what to tell you. You know what I'm saying? Like I still
Yeah.
get nervous. I'm on episode 14. I saw you're on like 160, I think. Like so, and I'm sure you still get some of those feelings, but it's about powering through it. And I think that's that's really just what it's about, man. You got to power through and gain that confidence, and then everything is just a stepping stone from there.
That's such a good example. I've never trained like in jiu-jitsu or martial arts, but one of my good friends does, and we were just having this conversation about that specific thing, about like that uncomfort and how it helps you grow. And I think what people mistake, it's the same as fear. So discomfort or being uncomfortable and fear have this parallel where there's a reasonable fear and unreasonable fear, and there's reasonable uncomfort and there's unreasonable uncomfort. If I said to you, hey, let's go play football on the freeway, and you're like, no, that's reasonable fear, right?
Yeah.
That's a stupid thing to do. If I said, let's jump out of a plane without parachutes, and you're like, no, that's terrible. That's a reasonable fear. Reasonable fears include death. Basically, they don't include anything else. and they're meant to keep us alive. That's the whole point, right? Like, yeah, you should be, if you're a woman and you are going on a blind date, you should be a little afraid that, like, hey, who is this man? And like, like what, I need to be aware because I don't know him. And we all have these reasonable fears, but most of us miss reasonable fears and unreasonable. Like you doing a podcast, there's nothing to be afraid of. You're not gonna, I mean, unless you invite me to the studio and you don't know me and I might be a serial killer, like there's nothing, what's the worst that can happen? You don't air it, you like, but we do that all the time. We don't ask for raises because we're afraid. That's not a reasonable fear. And if we look at discomfort, there's a lot of good reasons to be uncomfortable that are not okay, right? Like children with adults in certain situations and they're uncomfortable, they should get out of there and adults should know better, right? And sexual relationships between, all different, there's uncomfortable things where that's not okay. Those are reasonable uncomfort. But me asking you to push for one more rep on a bench press where you're like, I can't do it. That discomfort is actually what's going to make you stronger. That one more rep gets you to the limit. Now, there's a moment, right, where we go, you're going to burst a blood vessel and we take it too far. But likely, that's like kind of unlikely. Our brain, I used to do hot yoga all the time when we were allowed to do hot yoga. And my only rule was you can't leave the room because your brain has you thinking, I'm going to die, I'm going to pass out. First of all, if I pass out, they got me, right? Like they're not going to let me die in the room. Yeah. It'd be one thing if I was 85 or like, but I would allow myself to like sometimes to like stop doing the move, drink some water, catch my breath. But the deal was like, you got to get back in. You got to step back into the discomfort. If you're going to step out of the discomfort, you got to step back into it. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a huge lesson for people when they're looking at their life to go, is this reasonable discomfort? Or is this actually, does this discomfort actually signal go that way? Like follow the discomfort.
Yeah. And even when I think about it in terms of my life, I come from a traditional background, Balkan family from the country of Montenegro. I mean, all my parents really care about is go to school, get a job, So that's exactly what I did. And when I got to that point, I'm making decent money. I'm doing okay for myself. And I see that the path is lined out to success, to their idea of success. And now for me to come home, it's uncomfortable because my parents don't understand what are the ways to even be successful in a podcast or even what a podcast was in the first place. And I got my uncles like saying, hey, yo, you got to work. You're 22 years old. Like, what are you going to do with no money? Every family gathering, it's like, oh, podcast. What are you doing? What's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
So, but that sense of that lack of comfort, I should say, I feel like is exactly what you were saying is pointing me in that direction. And I wish I'm going to play this episode for them, man. I'm going to say, hey, look at Alex. Do you see Alex? And I think it's great to see you as an example. And I'm not saying that it's easy. This is not easy in any way, shape, or form. But to see you here, self-employed, doing your own thing. I mean, a performance coach isn't what I want to be, but just to see that it's possible to go out on your own and see you doing that firsthand, man, it's awesome and it's inspiring. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so thankful to have you on this podcast today, to be honest with you.
Well, thank you. And I want to say, like, my dad still says this stuff to me. My dad will like,
shit, man.
When I go, right, I'm 38 years old. My dad is, how's my dad's 80? My dad's like 80. My dad was always an entrepreneur, but my dad was like different generation, right? Entrepreneur was just about working hard, just grind it out. And there's a lot of things I can learn from my dad in terms of like, my dad had commitments and he just stuck to them. It didn't matter what he felt like. And I think that's really important. Like our feelings can dislodge us. But my dad, when I'll be at my parents' house and we'll be talking and podcast stuff will come up and he'll be like, are you making money off this thing? It seems like you spend a lot of time on all these podcasts. And, I think that it's important for us to do two things. Listen to what people that are older and wise and have other experience say, but not make it the truth.
Sure.
there's nothing wrong with where my dad's coming from. He loves me. He's supportive. He's concerned, like, hey, you're building a business. I built a lot of businesses. Seems like you spend a lot of time in an area that doesn't generate money. Now, what he doesn't understand is that podcast is marketing. It's credibility. It's how people find out about me. It's all sorts of things. And he's not wrong, right? I think what most people do is they're like, oh, you don't understand, Dad.
Mm.
Like, and then it's like they discount any value of all he has. And it's like, I don't know if you believe in God or religious. I think something that I am really proud of myself for now is you could take me into any religious venue, let's say a temple, a mosque, a church,
Sure.
as long as they're speaking English, as long as I can understand, and I can get value from what they say. I don't have to agree
Oh yeah.
with anything that they say, but I guarantee you at the end, we could walk out and I could find one nugget of gold in what I heard that I can attribute to my life. Even if 99% of what they said, I'm like, yeah, it didn't resonate.
Yeah,
I'll find something.
that's a great point right there. Because everybody, even like my father, saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" You know, he is right, just like your father is, in a sense.
Mhm.
That doesn't have to make it your truth. That's exactly what you said, you know, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. And especially to the analogy to going into a mosque or a cathedral or whatever it is. I think it's a great thing to do in your life to just pull the nuggets that you need out, and everything that you don't need, filter it, process it, and let go of it.
I think that's real. That's a testament to vulnerability.
Hmm.
That's I don't like the idea of saying like that's what I think it really is to be a man, because I don't want to like disenfranchise women but I don't know the word for it. It's like to step into your greatness, let's say, as a better way to describe this. You have to be open to things that don't actually resonate, because you know what you know, which is like kind of small, right? Like the amount of knowledge that exists in the world compared to what you or I know is like nothing. It's like maybe
Yeah.
1% if we're lucky. So if I'm not open enough to like hear other ideas or hear other perspectives and not just like kick them aside, then my ability to expand is limited. And I think that people are so from fear of being wrong or being challenged or not having confidence in their self and their beliefs. People like are so committed to what they believe being right that they're unwilling to hear someone else's perspective. And again, I think that like it doesn't, just because someone tells you their truth doesn't make it the truth. It
Hmm.
just means it's true for them. And that's just as true as what your truth is. And I think that there's so much value in like hearing other people's truths, so we can be like, oh, what can I learn from them? What can I take from them? And maybe like what's available, if we don't think we're all like, you hear this all the time. People are like, oh, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, I'm this, I'm that. No, you're not. You just somehow along the way somebody told you something or you decided it, and then you were like, oh yeah, that's me, that's how I am, or there's something happened repetitively, and then you looked for evidence in life where that kept happening, and then you like solidified it. It's like concrete. If you keep stirring it and moving it, it doesn't harden, but you let it harden and now it's solid. And now to break up the concrete takes a lot of work, but who you are is so fluid. It's so changeable if you allow it to be.
Yeah. When you went ahead and made this change in your life from, I don't know, not general manager, you
I
were
was
the
like,
head.
yeah, I was a director of operations, and I ran like restaurant groups and opened up.
Exactly. So when you made this change because you lacked fulfillment, did you find what you were searching for in this new life that you made for yourself?
Yeah. Oh my God. I think it's actually the challenge that I'm in now. So it happened little by little. First, it was like relationships and family. I started feeling more connected with. I started to have a better relationship with myself. It wasn't like, snap, life is good and I'm happy and fulfilled, right? Because at first, I was making no money and I was getting my ass kicked, unfortunately, in business. But personal things were starting to improve. Relationships were improving. Like I said, all those things. And then same thing, like things change also, right? As I changed, things change. So like that relationship I was in, and I got engaged, it fell apart. So it was like, to make things better, some things had to get worse first.
Mm-hmm.
So some things went backwards before they could go forwards, and some things just went forwards. Business went backwards first. Relationship romantically went backwards first. Other things like my relationship with my family like shot forward. My relationship with myself shot forward. And now I want to say we're like 6 years later, life is really good. And it's not because I'm like rich. I'm not rich,
God
not at
bless
all.
you.
Like I hustle every day to continue to grow my business and do these things that I'm doing. I'm not famous. I'm not rich. I still struggle to write my next. Trying to write my second book, and it's just as challenging as writing the first one.
Which we got to get to.
Thanks.
Like, I'm sorry to throw you off.
No, you're good. And where was I going? So when I look here, it's kind of like I got to a new pinnacle, like a new mountaintop. And that's actually the new challenge is life is pretty good. So what I work on sometimes with my coaches, I got a good practice, I have a good podcast, I have multiple podcasts. I already wrote a book. I got a good relationship, like my family and friends are like, I have all these things that are great. And so we can call it like my ego uses a little trick now, which it goes, dude, everything's fine. Just chill. Like, you don't have to work today. Take the day off, take a half day. Don't hustle that hard. Like it starts to use, now it's using my, like the amount of success. And I don't mean success monetarily specifically, but overall success and fulfillment in my life. It's using it against me because now I'm comfortable right here. So comfort used to be here. Well, now comfortable is here and it wants me to stay right here, but I want to get up to here.
Yeah.
So it's like I have to do I have to do new things to get me to that next level. And I think if you're committed, you're either growing or you're dying. There is no pause button on life.
Yeah.
So that moment when you hit those new peaks, you get to make a decision. Am I going to stay there, which is in a sense dying, or am I going to get even more uncomfortable and continue to grow?
Yeah, for sure. And one of the reasons why I left my job was I was working for a tobacco company. I, did not enjoy what I was doing. I didn't really have too much of a moral obligation. Like that wasn't really why I left.
Mm-hmm.
When I leave, somebody else is going to do it. But when I would wake up in the morning and my days, I just simply did not enjoy them. I did not enjoy them, and I craved something else, because I know I can do so much better with my life, and I know I can achieve so much, but in this current position, I'm never going to get there. And even though right now I'm just getting started out, I can see glimpses of it. You know, I am thoroughly enjoying the conversation with you right now. For me to go ahead and hop on the computer to speak with somebody who I just met and have these conversations, it's amazing, and it is fulfilling, because these conversations are a reason why I started the podcast. I would have conversations with people and just think to myself, I wish I recorded that. There's value in this conversation. I wish I recorded that. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to start recording them. And, I'm catching the glimpses of it. And even though I am uncomfortable at times, those little glimpses are what keep me going.
Yeah, I don't think it goes away. I'm uncomfortable all the time. I
Yeah.
just try to notice it, right? Like I'll be like straight up, I hate that I can look at myself while we're doing this. It drives me crazy. I wish I could
Really?
only see, I would just wish I could only see you. Like I'm aware there's nothing wrong, but like I said, oh,
I'm
damn.
just messing with you now.
But no, remember, like when I talked about my story of the way my mind was developed was everything is about looks and appearance. And so my mind by default constantly is like looking at me, trying to make these things. And I have to it's like meditation. I have to keep going. I have to like literally say to myself, look at you. Like I have to do it over and over and over again. And so there are times where like I've been on TV shows and things where I get super nervous inside because I can't see what I look like. And I'm like, in my head is freaking out because it's like, what if I look bad? What's it going to look like? What are people going to say? I'm really aware, like, none of that is supportive. It doesn't make me better. It actually makes me worse. So I have to keep practicing changing that mentality, right? I have to keep going, hey, notice what you're doing, come back. Notice what you're doing, come back. Like, let's get present, let's connect again. You know, I think your anxiety is just a warning sign. It's just your brain like trying to tell you something. And so it's like, okay, I hear you. I got you. We're okay though, right? Like, we're okay. Nothing's wrong here.
Absolutely.
I like that picture, by the way. That background picture. I don't know who did that, but
See,
the
it's mirrored,
crystal.
but this guy right here, yeah, it's not what it looks like. It's not about chasing the bag. It's right here. It says corruption, power, greed.
Nice. I
That's
like it
pretty
though.
what I'm getting at. Thank you, man. I
Yeah,
really
it's
appreciate it.
cool.
I'm over here. So, what I want to continue, I know we spoke to this earlier in our previous conversation, was who you were growing up as a person. The idea that you had of who you had to be, and how did that mess with you? I read your blog and you had I think you had a learning disability because of your eye muscles.
Yeah.
And now this probably led into other things, but did you find yourself, because we spoke and we talked about how we were both pretty much jocks, right? I don't know what sport you
Yeah.
played, but for me it was football. And these ideas and this lifestyle, I felt so misunderstood when I was going through high school. Did you feel the same way, or did you just not even, was the facade still going for you?
Oh my God. The facade it was all the facade. Um, so it all plays into it. It's like, when I look, when in hindsight, everything's 2020, right? It all lays out so perfectly.
Yeah.
Because as a, I don't know, 6-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever it was, my eyes didn't work the way they're supposed to. Like, basically, when you read, your eyes move along the page, they converge. Your eyes don't just follow; they actually like do this. The muscles make them go in and out. And my eyes didn't do that. And they thought I had something wrong with me when I was a little kid because I was having trouble reading. And my mom, I'm lucky that I had my mom, because my mom was like, this kid is smart. Like, I have conversations with him. He's not dumb. So
Yeah.
something doesn't add up, right? So it got her, she was curious. So in her curiosity, one of the things we did was we went to an eye doctor. And in going to an eye doctor, the doctor was like, hey, it's a muscle issue. It's not an intelligence issue. And where I say I'm lucky is because how many kids are there that might have this exact same problem, whose parents, teachers just like kids dumb, parents don't know any better, or they're too busy, right? Just trying to make a living.
Yeah.
And so some poor kid out there, probably lots, are like just out there thinking they're retarded or dumb or something's wrong with them or like whatever. And retarded is like, not like, that's the word that would get used. They use that specifically, like, because that's the way you feel about yourself. And
Yeah.
that's the way other kids are going to make you feel about yourself. And I got lucky. And so we had to do these exercises. And I remember being like 6, and we did these like little prisms, and you had to like make 2 letters become one and whatnot, whatever. But we did them. My mom was a beast, made me do them every day. And went back to the doctor after however long, 6 weeks or whatever. And the doctor goes, I remember this, like, this is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
We never seen this before. And my mom's like, what do you mean? And he's like, you fixed him. I remember. Now, maybe I made that up, right? Like, our minds make up memories, but like, I remember like this idea that I got fixed. Like, me and my mom fixed me. And that means you can only fix something that's broken, right? You can't fix something that's not broken. That there are parts of me as a human being that are broken. There's no parts of me that are broken. There's no parts of you that are broken. You're exactly the way you're supposed to be. Everyone is. Even if you're missing a limb, you're exactly the way you're supposed to be. It's the only way that it can be. This reality is all that there is. And I think that in that, like, that's part of image too, right? Like, all these things built up this idea that everything was about, for me, I realized early on, because I thought I was broken, I thought I wasn't smart. I had a couple other learning disabilities I got diagnosed with that made like learning more challenging. And learning disabilities are like confusing because it's like, dude, all of our brains work differently.
Yeah.
We just created a box as an education system that says everybody should fit in here. Well, everybody doesn't fit in any box. And instead of going, hey, how do we teach this person that doesn't fit in the box? We just say, oh, they're broken or they have a problem. And the gift in all this was I learned how to communicate. I learned how to speak powerfully. I learned how to be charismatic. I learned how to get what I want through like manipulation and creativity and doing all sorts of things. I remember like in college, I would circumvent requirements that were hard for me, like learning languages. I would find a way to get out of language requirements so I didn't have
Yeah.
to do it in ways that my parents would be like, how did you do that? That doesn't, and I did this like, but I learned how to be crafty like that.
Mhm.
Now, that doesn't help me as an adult who has integrity that wants to like do things with integrity. But I learned at an early age this idea that I wasn't smart and I had to find other ways to succeed. So I succeeded with charisma, my voice, looking good, performance, achievement.
Yeah.
And so high school, junior high, college, my 20s, it was all a facade. It was all that. It was all this idea of like playing a role. It was like I was playing a character in my own mind. It was just my job to show up as that character all the time.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
that's,
For sure. And I think that's a good segue into the book that you wrote, Fictional Authenticity. So we show up every day with this fictional idea of ourselves, this fictional vision of ourselves. Now, if you can go ahead and get into, what was your purpose for writing the book? What was your message for writing the book? How did it go?
more than anything, it was to write a book because I said I would write a book. Like
Yeah.
it was about an integrity and commitment to me. Like I remember thinking, I even wrote it in the book somewhere, that if no one reads this book but my mom, it's a success because that means I wrote a book and that'll be here forever.
Yeah.
Thankfully, more people did read the book than just my mom. Um, and but that was the first thing, was like I needed to write this for me
Yeah.
because that's all that there is, right? Like, people are going to not like what you do. I don't care what
Hmm.
you do, who you are, best musician, actor, politician, artist, somebody doesn't like them. So you're going to get hated on no matter what. So you better do stuff for you because that's all that is there at the end of the day. So it was for me. And then for me, it was about, um, I just got really clear that I'm not the only one that feels like they created a version of life like they were supposed to live. Like almost like they created the mask that they put on like consciously, and we like put it on every day and we show up like that every day. And everybody, women, men, all across the board, different races, cultures, we all do it. And I just wanted to be able to share what mine looked like in the hopes that like you read it and you go, man, I see, I didn't realize other people are like this.
Yeah.
Um, it's cool when I hear about people that I know that have read my book and they're like, man, that page where you talked about this fear story you had or this thing that you overcame, that like really resonated in me because I thought I was the only one who thought that, they weren't good enough or that they were a fraud or whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
So
We we ball ourselves up so much in these boxes. They're like these defense mechanisms. It's so hard to realize that we're all going through the same shit.
yeah, yeah, and like
So
it looks different, right? The way we experience it is all different. Like it is unique, but it's like this weird thing where it's like the same and different at the same time.
yeah, definitely. So what was the process like writing the book? Like how did you even begin to sit down and say, "Hey, I'm gonna write a book"? And I asked because the thoughts have obviously crossed my mind before, but I mean, I don't know what I would write about for the first time, but I've written short stories and I understand the process of editing, let's say up to 15 pages, and that's an ordeal. So what I mean, I know you had the confidence within yourself to say, "Hey, I'm going to write this book," which is amazing. But when you sat down, how much did you have to what was the learning curve like?
First off, I don't even think I knew what I was getting into when I started.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I thought it'd be like, I'm not a runner, but it'd be like being like, oh, I'm going to run a marathon this year. Like, I don't even think I realized how much training it would take, right, to like
Oh
go
yeah.
from not being a runner to running a marathon. And I think a book is a marathon. It's not to say that you can't write a book in a few months. You could,
Mhm.
but and I bet if you're like Stephen King, it'll probably be a really good book. But if you're like you or me and you've never done that before, it's probably going to be pretty shitty. There's a lot of great writers out there. I listen to a lot of podcasts where writers talk about their process, and a lot of them talk about the first draft of a book they throw away. They literally write an entire book and throw it away, or like just take details of it, and then they draft two is like where it really goes. So what was my experience like? It was all over the map. You know, the first 7 months, it took me about 7 months to write 20,000 words. So I don't know what that is. You know, I would go like a month where I'd write a lot. I'd go a month where I wouldn't write at all.
Yeah.
It would just ping pong to these extremes. And then I was staying in Colorado at my friend's house for after I moved away from New York, and I was there like basically by myself in the small town in Colorado. And I only knew one other person. Um, and so all day long, I would basically just have clients, and they didn't even have TV. So I would just like have clients, and I would write. And I churned out the next 40,000 words in like a month and a half,
Wow.
2 months, somewhere. Like I got on a mission, and it was all about the commitment. Like you write at these hours, you have to write, no distract. Like I like created discipline and boundaries, and I made myself do it. And I can tell you that when I got to the last chapter, I cried the entire time I wrote it. Like every word I was crying because it wasn't about what I was writing. It was about this release of, dude, this whole thing that first draft took like a full year. And
Yeah.
the release of that, like I remember like in it was just such an epic release of like, imagine when people write when they're running that last mile of the marathon, it's like all of it suddenly shows up, all the stuff they've been holding in to fight through. And then the real work actually started. This is what's the crazy part. Like you would have thought that was the work, then the editing and the rewriting, and that's not my strength.
Mhm.
I'm a fast writer. I can create content, but I'm not a, bullet points, or sorry, I'm not a periods and commas and structure kind of writer. And when people edit my writing, the way my brain hears their edits is that you're stupid again, right? It's like, oh, you're a
Mhm.
bad writer, you're stupid. So I had to have a breakthrough in that these people are here to help me, they're here to support me and make me better, which took a while. I had to get committed to rewriting. Like it was a whole different process because you already said all this stuff. Now you got to like go say it again or clean up. It's not as exciting. At least for me, it wasn't. And it took me like 2.5 years to get from
Wow.
first draft to final draft after the first draft. So, but from the day I told my first coach I would write a book and I like had the title, I knew what the title was, to when the book came out was like 4.5 years.
That's
Now it does
amazing.
not have to be that long, but it was like 4.5 years. We wrote about 7 drafts in like 9 months. At the end, the last 9 months, we did like 7 drafts because me and my editor got super committed. We created a really good process and a structure, and she kind of like pushed me, and I kind of didn't want to let her down. So it was like a really good push and pull, and I'm like really happy with it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to finish up the audiobook right now, actually, and that's been its own set of ups and downs, challenges with technology and the way things sound and whatnot. But it was a hell of a ride, and I strongly encourage anyone that wants to write a book, like write a book for you. Who cares if you
Yeah.
sell it, but do it. Like that journey will teach you something about who you are.
Yeah. And I think that applies to pretty much everything in life. I mean,
Yeah.
like, let's say for your podcast or my podcast, like, when I started off, I knew nobody's listening. I'm over here talking to myself. I was doing a lot of solo episodes. So it's like, whatever, I'm doing this for myself just to see if I can do it.
Yeah.
And then you start to gain the confidence and you realize you can do it. And hopefully one day I'll have that release that you had when you were writing that last chapter. I hope one day I'll get there, and I think I will, as long as I just keep pushing forward.
I think. Can I give you something?
Please. That's
Dude,
why you're here, man. I want it all.
pick pick a goal. Make something up. Like for me, I said 100 episodes.
Yeah.
I just made that up, right? Like it wasn't, nobody told me that. I just remember being like, You're doing this for you. You're doing this for fun. Yes, you want it to. I want it to be all sorts of things, but I don't get to control how many people listen. I don't get to control. There's a lot of factors I don't get to control, but there are a lot of factors I do. And one of the things I said is I don't get to make any choices, right? Like, you know, when a book is finished, but when is a podcast finished? It's just ever evolving. So I said when I started, I'm going to do 100 episodes before I make any decisions about changing or quitting or whatever. And episode 100 was pretty cool because I did it with my best friend, like my best friend since high school, and he's a pretty famous artist, and so he's had like success in his own right. It wasn't just like my best friend; it was like he's crushing it in the world that he's in, and it was kind of cool to see like how far we both come, and but also just to be like, man, I did 100 of these. 100 is a lot,
It's a lot.
you
It's
know.
a lot, man. It's a lot. I gotta tell you.
And again, I just feel proud of it, right? Like when I look back,
Yeah.
I'm like, I wrote a book. I've now done 200 over 200 episodes of podcasts in general, not just the one. But it's like I feel proud of that.
Yeah, and you
That like
should
makes
be.
me smile.
You should be proud of it. Don't get complacent now, like we spoke about
Oh,
before, but you should definitely be proud of yourself. Like that's an amazing accomplishment and achievement for sure. So I don't know exactly what my goal is gonna be. We'll see. Maybe I'll set it for 100. I mean, what are we on now? 14? We're almost there.
yeah, I think
Almost there.
setting stretch goal, like doing things like this, setting stretch things that push you to get
Yeah.
uncomfortable and to get you to fight through all the shit that's going to come up. Getting to 100, you're going to get bored, man. You're going to get bored at like 50 or 60. You're going to be like, do I want to have this conversation? Some of these people suck. Like, I suck. You're just all the editing. Like, it's going to hit,
Yeah.
right? The beginning is exciting. The end is exciting. The middle is like a mud pit. And I think that's everything, whether it's marriage, a job, like right, new jobs are all exciting. When you quit, it's
Mhm.
all exciting. But right in the middle of it, and think about dating, we call it the honeymoon period, right? For a reason,
Yeah.
you know, and at the end, people are all in love, like on their deathbed again, they're holding each other's hands, but in the middle, they're fighting and it's hard. And I think it's important if you want to grow, if you want to push yourself, you want to be successful, to keep creating, like make up things. So like for me, just randomly, like this year, I'm a vegan for 2020.
Yeah. I saw
I
that.
don't. I was, dude. I used to eat ribs, like peel that off the bone and just shovel it in my mouth. I didn't believe in forks and knives, like
Yeah.
go like caveman, like meat. And I got like what 30 year left roughly, and this is the hardest part right now because right now I'm like, man, I already did 200 and something days. I should
Yeah.
just quit. I can go
Throw in
back.
the towel.
No, but there's no. It's this is the part that like tests me to see what I'm
Yeah.
made of and like what I can learn about myself. Because right now it's uncomfortable and it's challenging, but this is where like it's like friction, right? Friction is
Mhm.
where the sparks come from, and I think of the sparks as like that's the magic.
Yeah.
There's no friction, there's no magic.
Absolutely. I, and thank you for that piece of advice. I'm definitely gonna sit down and try to write because we have these goals in our head, but it's not concrete.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get some concrete stuff down. So I'm gonna set it right now. Let's do episode 100. I think that's gonna be the goal. 100 episodes. I mean, right now at this pace, definitely.
Dude,
And just
tell me to
and
come
just
back.
oh
I'll
oh
come back.
no way.
Come back for episode 100. Like I don't need to do the whole episode with you, but just like a little. I was there when you said it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just thinking about because right now I've done three people's entries. So the first guy was a guy who was a Afghan war vet.
Oh, nice.
I
Wow.
spoke to last week, a man born and raised in Beirut about the situation out there in Lebanon, and now it's you. And the amount of
I'm like, dude, those guys. I'm like a kid who grew up
nah,
in
nah,
LA.
nah.
I'm a kid who grew up in LA who has LA image problems. I mean, it's all makes sense, right? But like, man,
No, but
thanks for putting me in
honestly
the
though, like
category.
just thinking about 100 episodes. I mean, I still do my solo episodes, so 100 episodes. I'll probably speak to at least 50 more people, and I can't even imagine the perspective just thinking about it. I mean, no amount of money can even give me that value, you know?
I learned so much. I learned so much
Yeah,
from the podcasts I host, and I learned from the ones I'm on.
yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, man. I know I've held you here for a bit. I don't know if you have to leave or not, but I just want to say this time that I spent here, I appreciate it so much. The perspective that I gained throughout this conversation, your vulnerability, how open you were, it's amazing, man, to sit on the screen, hop on the computer at 7 o'clock at night and have this conversation. And I'm grateful.
Well, so am I. I think the fact that somebody wants to talk to me and like interview me, you know, it's still like, I think it always feels, I don't ever want to lose that. I like, honestly, it's not that it feels like there was a point where it felt undeserving, right? Like, oh, who am I? I feel like I've done some stuff and it's cool, but at the same time, I'm like, man, they don't have to talk to me. Nobody has to listen to me. It's like, I'm
Yeah.
super grateful that you would even create the space and invite me on next to like an Afghani war veteran. Like, to me, I'm like, that, you know, and it's not about comparison, right? It's just me being
Yeah.
like, I'm super grateful to you for creating the space, letting me tell my story. My hope is always that, you know, one person at least, I hope obviously way more, but I hope somebody like this resonates with, and it inspires them to maybe reach out for help, get a therapist,
Hmm.
get a coach, change their life, do something to not have things go the way that they've gone if it's not working for them. So
Yep.
thanks for, I'm thanking you in advance for that person that hears it, but thanks for giving me the space to practice being authentic and vulnerable.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, man. So listen, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure. I know all the listeners are gonna love it, enjoy it, and I hope to see you again, man. I hope this isn't just our last call. You know, hello and goodbye.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
let me know.
Bye.
I'll write you another time.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you so much, Alex. You can find him at thedreammason.com. All right, guys, take it easy.